Hey there, internet peoples. Welcome back to the Southern Motorworks channel. This is going to be part 3 of our lifted XC70 video here. So we've been working on the last 2 videos, putting a new struts all the way around our 06 Volvo XC70 here. New struts, new water pump, new timing set, all this, that, and the other, right? So we've got all that stuff installed, and we've got her running and driving again, running good. And the only thing we're working on now is a couple issues with, we have a little bit too much positive camber in there. She's kind of standing like Tommy Pickles from Rugrats back in the day. But we got to get that sorted out. And while we're in there, we're going to go ahead and replace, put in some brand new CV axles. We got lower control arm bushings for the front, ball joints for the front, and more camber bolts. And if the second set of camber bolts don't fix it, then we're gonna go old school, and we're gonna slot the top bolts on the struts and try to get it sorted out that way. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So first thing we're gonna do is just go ahead and get the wheels and tires off, and we will start getting the lower control arms off so we can get the new ball joints and bushings on the lower control arms. And then we'll probably move on to CV axles after that before we worry about trying to get the camber figured out and all that stuff. So for right now, the first part of the video is just going to be part replacement, and then we'll move on to modification, trying to get these camber settings dialed in. So we'll get you in here and show you what we're looking at for brand new parts. All right, so hang tight. Alright, so the first thing we're going to be doing here is disconnecting our tie rod end so that we can, we'll be able to swing the steering knuckle off to the side enough, hopefully, to be able to get the CV axle out without touching the camber bolts on top and stuff, or the regular bolt. So we may end up having to undo the sway bar. I'm not quite sure yet, but hopefully we'll be able to get enough room to get the CV axle out. That's going to be the biggest thing. So I think it's 18 mil. Yep. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do here is go ahead and disconnect our sway bar end link. As you can see, it's kind of got some tension on it. It's going to fight us, so we'll go ahead and just disconnect the top bolt from that. We got our tie rod end all pushed off to the side here, so now we'll go ahead and disconnect that, and hopefully that'll give us enough room to be able to swing the CV axle out. But either way, we're going to work on the bottom control arm mounts first. I'm going to jack up from the bottom of the control arm there just to take a little bit of the pressure off of it, so it's not hanging there completely. It's going to be a 19 mil. Pop that loose. Try not to tear your friggin' ABS line there, because that would be bad. Alright, we'll get that pushed out of the way. Put the bolt or the nut back on it just so we don't lose it. Alright, all that stuff's kind of out of the way over there. Now, I think we should be good to be able to release these front and rear bolts that hold the lower control arm on there. We'll get you in here. We'll get you in here and show you what they're looking like. As you can see, they're pretty. The rubber's all split and cracked. I'm assuming it's probably the same way under this one, but they're definitely worn, ready for some new ones. And as you can see, these CV axles are pretty. The boots are kind of dry rotted and whatnot. They're spitting grease out now that we've got our lift installed, so we got some brand new ones. Going to seal that right up. Yep, 18 mil. I doubt it, but we'll give it a try and see if our small impact here can get it loose. If not, we'll have to bust out the breaker bar. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. All right. The breaker bar never fails. Yep. Oh, I didn't even realize that. It's a nut up top there too. We're going to have to clean that off and hold that, I guess. Okay. Let's try that again, shall we? Alright. That bolt there loose. Put our nut back on it just to hold it still for now. Yep, 15 millimeter. All right, so I think we're gonna call it a day there. We got most of the passenger side front suspension undone here. We're almost out of daylight, so we'll get back at it tomorrow when we get home from the day job. Might have to pick up a couple little wobble sockets or something like that. Having a little bit of trouble getting to one of the bolts on the lower control arm there, but everything seems to be going pretty smooth. It's not really fighting us coming apart too much, so I think tomorrow we'll, like I said, get back at it whenever we get home from the day job, and we'll keep on working on getting everything disassembled here, get it ready for all these new parts that we got. So, all right, we'll see y'all tomorrow. All right, so it's the following day. We went ahead and got that last remaining bolt holding the lower control arm to the subframe off. So now we're moving on to the ball joint on the passenger side here. We'll show you what we're dealing with that. I don't know if y'all can tell or not. It's going to be a little bit hard to see here. There's going to be a bolt right in here and one on the opposite side in the exact same place, and that's what holds the lower ball joint onto the control arm, or onto the rest of the steering knuckle. So what we're going to do is take those two bolts off, and then once we get the lower control arm out, we'll punch the ball joint out of the control arm itself. But for right now, we're just looking to get it off of the steering knuckle so that we can replace the bushings and the lower ball joint. So we'll get the camera set up, and we'll go ahead and knock these last two bolts off. We just kind of got, as you can see, we just kind of got the jack supporting it by the bottom of the brake drum and stuff here, brake disc and stuff here. Should be all right as long as you're gentle with it. Should be all right as long as you're gentle with it. Make sure you don't have your jack scratching up the brake disc or anything like that. You should be all right. You just don't want to put, you know, any kind of crazy amount of force on it or whatever, but we're just kind of trying to stabilize. We're not like lifting the vehicle by that or anything. So, all right. I think our rooster's having something to say about us working on the Volvo out here. Sharing his opinion about our work, apparently. show y'all what we're dealing with here. The two bolts we just undid, they hold the ball joint in right here and on the other side in the same spot, so it's just kind of frozen in there from time. So we'll give it a couple whacks with the old hammer, should bust loose. There she goes. Alright, so as you can see there, we got our lower control arm loose. You can see just a little bit of kind of galvanic corrosion and stuff there around the lower ball joint. I mean, it's not bad, but it's definitely not too tight anymore. So we'll get this one up on a stand or whatever, and get these bushings replaced. You can see this one isn't too awful bad, but this rear one here is just, you know, the rubber's all split all to heck and back. So we'll get these things replaced. This one will be ready to put back in, but we'll probably, I'm thinking what we'll do is we'll lift it up on both sides, and then get everything, get the controller, or I mean the tie rods disconnected. That way we can straighten out the steering wheel. It's a little crooked, like I mentioned about in the previous video. So we'll get that one kind of straightened out, hook the tie rod ends back up, and then the missus won't have to deal with the, you know, driving at a 2 o'clock position all the time in order to go straight. One thing I would like to note is these are the two bolts that hold the lower control arm on the forwardmost mount here. Those are actually not going to come out from the looks of it. The oil pan is right there behind it, so they don't actually need to come out. They're perfectly fine like that. You can leave them in place, and then whenever we go to put the new one back in, we'll just pop it in there. We'll probably put this bolt in first back here, and then we'll pop these in here and tighten them in from the back side. So don't concern yourself with those not coming out. It ain't gonna be no big deal. All right, so we've got our new parts here, our original control arm. I'll show you what we're working with here on the new parts and whatnot. They're from TRQ. Seem to be all right. It's off the eBay, and they had real good reviews and whatnot. All the parts seem to be pretty good quality stuff. So we've got, for a real good price, we've got new rearward bushings for it. You see new ball joints, obviously, and yeah, new front bushings for it there too. So it's a pretty good little buy there. I think at the time of this video being made, I think we paid I think it was like 60 bucks for this whole kit or something like that. So it's not bad at all. Gives you brand new bushings and whatnot for both lower control arms on the front, and it's a heck of a lot cheaper than purchasing brand new control arms. So we will go ahead and get this old ball joint out of the control arm and see how bad we're gonna have to fight these bushings coming out of this control arm. Hopefully they're not too bad, but you know, I don't know if you've ever done bushings in lower control arms or upper control arms or anything before, but they're usually pretty well stuck in there. So especially on a high mileage vehicle like this. So we will get down to it, and hopefully it doesn't fight us too bad. So all right, so it's going to be our 18 millimeter again. We're going to try to undo this quickly with the impact. If it gets stuck or anything, we have to work at it. There's a Torx bit inside here that you have to stick in there, and you'll have to use a wrench on it instead. So let's try this first. Maybe get it a little cleaned off. Let me get some penetrating oil in there maybe. Alright, so we've got that busted loose. Ended up having to use the old breaker bar. So let's go back to the impact, see if we can get it now. There we go. Not too bad at all. There you go. Little ball joint out. Doesn't want to screw back on. I can't imagine why. Alright. Moving on to the bushings here. See what we're going to be dealing with. We may have to go get the shop press. Yeah, that did not budge at all. Alright, so we were working on pressing out the bushings out of the control arm, the old bushings, but unfortunately it would seem like, I don't know whether it happened in transport or just from age or whatever, but my 12-ton shop press has the seals in the hydraulic have given up the ghost, so to speak. So in the meantime, we'll either pick up another hydraulic bottle jack tomorrow after work, or possibly just a new shop press or something. We'll see how much they are. But in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and work on getting this CV axle out of this passenger side here, because we're going to be replacing these also. They're slinging grease and everything now with the lift rather. So we're going to get that busted out of there and get it ready for the new one to go in. Now we should have plenty of room here to be able to pull this out of there. Just need, I think it's a 13 mil on that. Shouldn't be too awful tight. Or maybe it is. Through there just so we don't lose that bolt. And might have to give it a little shove out of there. Just like that. CV axle's out of the steering knuckle anyway. As you can see, get you in here better. See all the corrosion and stuff that was on these and the ABS ring, and yeah, they fought me pretty good up in Maine. Whenever we first bought the vehicle, we put hub bearings all the way around it because there was a couple of them that were just shot. And these CV axles, the right rear in particular, fought me hard trying to get the CV axles out of the bearing hub assembly there and everything. So whenever I put them all back together, we greased everything with copper anti-seize, and that stuff works wonders. It does. If you live in the Northeast or anywhere, Midwest, whatever, where there's salt on the roads in the wintertime, I highly suggest greasing those splines and the face on the CV axle here, because boy, whenever them things seize up, it's a bear to get them loose, that's for sure. Alright, so we should be able to just pull this CV axle out of the angle gear. Ow! Alright, so we've got our CV axle loose here out of the steering knuckle. So underneath there's a carrier bearing on this passenger side, closer over towards the transmission side. So we got to get on the creeper under there and get that busted loose. I think it's like 212 mil bolts to hold it on there. And once you get that carrier bearing loose, this should just slide straight out towards the passenger side of the vehicle. Actually, you might be able to see them right in here. There's your carrier bearing right there. You got 112 and 112 millimeter under here too, so we might actually be able to bust it out without actually getting under the vehicle. But it's 12 millimeter, one here, one there. Bust them loose and it should come straight out this way, straight out that way, straight towards the passenger side. Oh, guess I have to do the second one by hand. All right, so there we go, two 10 mil bolts. So what it's going to look like under there, if you can see, just right here, it looks like a cap, almost like a bearing cap on a rotating assembly on the bottom end of an engine. So the two 10 millimeter bolts loose, it's just going to pop off like that. That's what you're looking at there. Now, yep, just comes loose. Be careful the seals on the inside of the transmission. You don't want to pull this out too roughly and damage anything. Pull it out as evenly as possible. There you go. You may have to pull the strut off to the side a little bit, but that's it there. Alright, so that's all there is to it for the CV axle. We have some brand new ones to put in here, so should look a heck of a lot better than these. These have definitely seen some miles here, so alright, we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so we finally got the bushings, the old bushings, out of the lower control arm mounts there. We actually ended up cutting them sort of with a Dremel tool and a carbide bit a little bit, and then we just kind of knocked around all the way around until they folded in on themselves. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So as you can see, it's out of there. That's what we ended up doing, cutting through it a little ways, and then we just cut it together, pushed it together rather, with a pry bar from either side, busted it right out, and same thing on the other side there. That's the two halves of that one. So now that that's all cleaned up, it's all ready for the brand new bushings to be put in there. So this side's pretty much done. It's ready for new parts. We've got the old CV axle out, we got the control arm off, and the old bushings and old ball joint out of the lower control arm. So I think we're going to call it a night there. Whenever we get home from the day job tomorrow, maybe with a new shop press, not sure yet, we'll see. But whenever we get home from the day job tomorrow, we can go ahead and just slap the new bushings in the lower control arm and get the new CV axle put in, and then we'll move on to the other side, putting all these new parts on and whatnot. And then probably once we get the new parts installed from either side, we'll worry about trying to dial in the camber, either with those camber bolts or by slotting the bolts on the top, so, or bolt holes on the top, I should say. But anyway, for the night, that's going to be it. So y'all hang tight. We'll be back tomorrow afternoon. All right, so we're back at it the following day. We were just going to skip over disassembly on the driver's side because we'd already showed y'all how to do it on the passenger side, right? So we're going to save a little time and trouble there. But I guess evidently the Volvo had other plans. So we've got the control arm off, as you can see, getting ready to refurbish that with new bushings and new lower ball joint and everything. But whenever we were pulling the driver's side CV axle out, well, I don't really know how to describe it, so we'll just show you. We went to pull on it real good, trying to break it loose out of the transmission, and well, Yeah, so we ended up having to go and get a tool that I've never actually had to use before to pull CV axles, but hopefully it'll do this one pretty good. So we'll show you what we're dealing with here. So we have the OEM tools, just a 5-pound slide hammer pretty much. It's actually a rental tool from AutoZone. I'll have to clean it, but we got that. And we have the little adapter end here that screws onto the end of it to be able to pull CV axles out. So like I said, it's actually a rental tool that they give me. They didn't have one in stock just to buy, so I just bought the rental tool because I will not be bringing it back. So yeah, so we'll get this one up there, and I may have to modify that little puller arm there a little bit. I think I'm going to have to grind away a little bit on it to be able to fit it around the end of this Volvo CV axle. But we'll get that in there, get this driver's side snatched out, and hey, we added an extra tool for the repertoire for next time, I reckon. So all right, so as for the brand new CV axles we're going to be using, these, what we got here, just some OEM quality. Nothing too fancy, but they should do the job just fine. From Track Motive here, we'll get you in there, show you the part numbers. VO8043 for that one, and of course this one's on the opposite side. VO8042 for that one. So like I said, it should do the job pretty well. It's just an OEM replacement CV axle. So we'll go ahead and get this passenger side one in, get that all sort of buttoned down before we install the new stuff on the lower control arm there for the passenger side anyway. All right, so before we do anything moving forward as far as putting this passenger side CV axle in, we're going to go ahead and clean up the carrier bearing cap and everything. You see it's kind of just a little rusty in there from being off. It's been real humid out here last few days, so we got most of it cleaned up with a wire wheel, but it's kind of difficult to get down in this channel with a wire wheel here, so we're just going to hit it with a little, it's just a steel wool soak pad. So you don't want to be too rough on it and cause a bunch of you know, micro scratches and stuff on the surface. We're just looking to knock off the rust off the top of it. So all right, as you can see, that's what we're looking for there, pretty clean on the inside. Now we'll do the same thing to the other half that's on the inside of the vehicle. All right, so we've got that cleaned up pretty well, the outside half and the part that's still in the car. And so now we're just going to spray it down with a little bit of parts cleaner just to knock off any dust or anything like that. Try to make it as clean as possible before we put that new CV axle in. I'll let that dry for a couple minutes, and then we'll be good to go to start putting this passenger side CV axle back in. All right, so as you can see here, we've got our new CV axle. Like I said, it's just a nice OEM replacement. Looks to be pretty good quality. So what I'm hoping, we're replacing these because the previous ones, after we lifted it, we're squeezing out a whole lot of grease around the seals due to the increased lift. So I'm hoping that it's just a seal issue on the old ones, and then on these hopefully it'll seal back up and be fine. But I will say that sometimes whenever you lift these independent suspension vehicles and stuff like that, they do kind of tend to squeeze out grease around the CV axle seals, and sometimes it's just a matter of the space inside the boot being smaller due to the increased angle and increased lift, and they'll squeeze out whatever extra grease there is in there, and then they'll be fine. I have one on the on the driver's side of my Mercedes on the 430 there that it did the same thing after I lifted it, and that's been like 3 years ago, and it's still perfectly fine. So hopefully that's what the issue is, and it'll just kind of self-adjust. But if it doesn't, and it ruins the CV axle, then we will move on from there, try to figure out a more permanent solution to it. But I have a feeling that it's just going to kind of adjust itself just like the Mercedes did. So that being said, before we put this up in there, I am going to put a little extra grease on the splines and everything here, just to aid in the, you know, re-entry into the angle gear there and whatnot. And you definitely want this to be nice and clean. You don't want any kind of dirt, dust, debris, or anything like that being put down into the angle gear there. So make sure it's nice and clean. All right, so we're going to be using some Mobil 1 synthetic grease here. Good stuff. And like I said, we're just trying to grease the splines a little bit. That's why I'm not worried about putting it in my grease gun right now. Just gonna kind of make sure that it doesn't tear any seals or anything like that whenever we go to insert it back into the angle gear there. So, and the carrier bearing that's on it, you don't have to worry about any grease on there. This is sealed, already greased, so it's good to go. So that's all we're looking for there. Just a little bit of extra, you know, slipperiness moving forward into that angle gear there, to try to avoid tearing any seals or anything like that. So that is the last thing we want to do at this point. Alright, should be about up in there. If I get this carrier bearing lined up, then we'll be good to go. Alright, perfect. I don't know if y'all can hear it in the background, but there are bumblebees like crazy going around out here in my shop area. Goodness. Things are kind of annoying. They're usually harmless, but good Lord. It's like an orchestra playing behind me 24/7. Alright, so we've got our other half to our carrier bearing in there. 2 bolts. Make sure the bolts are fairly cleaned up and whatnot. I'll try to do this so that y'all can see here. It's just going to go straight across it like that. Alright, I believe these are a 10mm. Yep. Okay, so I just checked it just to make sure. These 2 bolts here actually looks like they don't have a spec, torque spec. So I just snugged them down with the ratchet there and gave them maybe another quarter turn after that. You don't want to overdo it because I do believe they are going into aluminum there. So you got to be, maybe it is steel. I can't quite tell from here. No, I guess it is steel, but still, either way, you don't want to overdo it. So I just kind of gave them an extra quarter turn. That should be fine. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and try to get our CV axle assembly back in the hub here. There you go. Just like that. Got to pull that little seal out before we go to seal it up 100%. Little thing that protects the threads on the end of the CV axle there. But before we seal this up 100%, we'll put some more copper anti-seize on those threads, or on the splines rather, just to make sure that it's not going to go anywhere. Or just to make sure that it's not going to get seized up, I should say. We shouldn't really have to worry about it down here, but better safe than sorry. I think we're about good to go on that part. Just got to get the new parts installed in the lower control arm. Alright, so this is what you're going to end up having to do. Most likely have to grind it down a little bit just to fit it in between the CV axle and the transmission housing. As you can see, it's pretty tight in there, so we had to modify it a little bit to make it work. But hey, it's all good as long as it works. That's all that matters. Don't know if that's going to be in there good enough to pop it out, but we'll try. Of course not. Alright, so I don't know if y'all can tell on the video or not, but it actually moved a little bit once I got the little pickle fork thing there wedged up in there, so I do believe this is going to come out of their new issue. So we'll wedge this strut off to the side a little. And that's all she wrote. Still cannot believe that broke off like that, but that's what you're dealing with on the end of the CV axles, a little clip like that, and it has to get over the little channel that it sets in inside the angle gear or transmission on this side rather. But yeah, so there we go. That is crazy. That thing must have been that wore out and sloppy. I'm surprised it wasn't making noise, but just pulled slap in half when I went to pull it out of there by hand. Crazy. All right, well, at least now we can move on to the next part. All right, so we're back at it again, trying to remove these bushings out of the lower control arms. So even with the shop press revamp, these things are just frozen up in there. So rather than heating them up and all that stuff, what we did here, I'll show you, we just notched the top and the bottom on both of them, cut the rubber off and everything, pushed the remainder of the rubber out of the center. Then we notched the metal casing of the bushing on either side. So what we're going to do now is just hammer them down in there, and they should collapse on themselves and come right out. So it's kind of a, you know, little bit of a redneck way to do it, but as long as it works, you just got to be careful not notch too far and go into the control arm itself. So all right, so what we're going to be doing, like I said, just hammering these bushings in on themselves. There we go. There's the first one out. You can see all that galvanic corrosion and everything from those salt roads getting up in there in between, corroding between the aluminum and whatnot. All right, now we'll do this other side here. Alright, so we finally got those hammered out. Those things were on there. I'm going to tell you what, we notched the control arm just slightly there. Not too bad, so it should be fine, but we'll keep an eye on it to make sure. We'll get these all cleaned up, get this corrosion out of here, and should be good to go. We just need to knock the lower ball joint out there. So we'll bust that nut loose real quick. It's going to be our 18mm again. All right, so we managed to get that out of there. As you can see, we actually ended up cutting the lower ball joint out because it was so completely rusted in there that the bolt was seized and everything. So we got that out, and this is the driver's side now, ready for the new bushings to go in and stuff. So unfortunately though, we're almost out of daylight for the night. So we will pick this back up tomorrow, start reinstalling new bushings on everything, and we're finally ready to start going ahead and putting it back together. So we will pick this up tomorrow after we get home from the day job. So y'all hang tight. All right, so we're back again. It's a chilly, miserable, rainy day out here in Florida Panhandle, but we're trying to press forward. We're going to go ahead and work on reinstalling bushings in the lower control arms, along with the lower ball joints on those control arms as well. So we've got our shop press working again over here with a new 12-ton bottle jack in there. So that should be more than enough force to press these new bushings into there. So without further ado, we'll go on ahead and get to work. All right, so before we go on ahead and press those into the control arm here, as you can see, there's kind of a little bit of just corrosion. Not super bad or nothing, but enough that we're gonna go on ahead and just clean it up a little bit with a little steel wool and elbow grease here. So that way, whenever we put new ones in, they slide in a little bit easier. Hopefully, anyways, that's the goal. All right, so those seem to be in pretty good shape now. So we'll go ahead and start working on trying to press these new ball joints, or new bushings in. And these don't really matter. It doesn't matter which way you put them. That way, same thing. So it doesn't really matter. And really, there's no sense in putting any sort of lubricant on here because it's an interference fit. So the lubricant's not going to do anything to try to ease it going in there anyways. So I think first we'll get them kind of just started by tapping them with a hammer a little bit, and then we'll start pressing them down in there. Okay, so it doesn't really matter which way these go up and down, but you do want to make sure that you space it in there so that the back side of these are oriented like that, because that ain't going to do you no good. Got to be like that so that they can bolt into the subframe on the vehicle there. Alright, so as you can see, it's the following day again, and yesterday we got to a little bit of an impasse, and I just had to set the tools down and call it a night. So yeah. Apparently, whether it be from corrosion, the saw roads up north, whatever it may be, the lower control arm on the driver's side, trying to press the new bushing into it, and apparently the aluminum's been compromised a little bit. So yeah, as you can see, this is, that's not supposed to do that. That's that's a little bit more than what JB Weld can fix. So anyway, went inside last night, straight on Rock Auto, ordered 2 new lower control arms, left and right, with bushings already installed. So we'll just pop this one out here and we'll hold on to an extra set of bushings. You never know when you can use extra car parts, right? So that being said, so we got a few days until that gets here. As soon as that does, we'll slap those on, and this is pretty much ready to go from there. But in the meantime, while we're waiting on those parts to get here, what we're going to work on is going ahead and slotting the top holes on the struts so that we can try to correct our positive camber. I want to try that first because I really don't like the thought of having 2 camber bolts on the top and the bottom of the steering knuckle there. Some folks run it and say it's perfectly safe. I don't know. It probably is, in all honesty, but you know, if I can leave that bigger, stronger bolt on the bottom and correct the camber from the top side, then I'd rather just do it that way, just for safety's sake. So we'll get you in there and show you what we're planning on doing here. All right, so what we're looking to do here is just give us a little bit of room to be able to slot these or slide the top of the strut inward a little bit to try to correct our positive camber. We're going to accomplish that by taking our nice little carbide bit on our Dremel tool here, and what we're going to do is slot this to where instead of the hole being right here, it's going to run in a elongated shape. Now we're only looking for maybe about one of these bolt widths. We're only looking to maybe like double the size of the hole, and we want to double it that way so that we can rock this strut tower that way a little bit, which is going to give us a little bit more negative camber, try to correct this huge amount of positive camber that we've been dealing with. So as you can see, this kind of fits in there. We may have to finesse this with a hammer a little bit or something. I think there's going to be enough room on this side of the spring to be able to push it that way a little bit, but there's really no way of knowing without trying it. So we will get a drop cord run out here and get these unbolted, and we'll go on ahead and start trying to get these things slotted so we can see what we're going to be dealing with here. All right, now you can see what that's looking like there. See, we just slotted these holes. Now we're gonna use some filler metal and tack weld this stuff in here. Once we get the holes set right where we want them, we're gonna tack weld some metal in here to keep them from sliding back this way once they're installed. But I'm liking the looks of this so far. Let's set this strut up back up in there and see what it looks like. Okay, so you can see what we're talking about here. It's you see where the edge of the flange was originally on this flange nut here. Now you can see we gained, oh shoot, probably close to a ½ an inch there, with just that small minor adjustment there. Now we won't know how it's going to be, unfortunately, until we get everything settled and put on the ground. Obviously we need lower control arms for that, so this really won't be able to be finalized until we get those new parts in. But you see what we're going for, and you know, that much adjustment up here is going to equal much more down there. So if we can get rid of our positive camber by slotting the top of the struts like this, then we can fine-tune the positive to negative camber with the camber bolt down on the steering knuckle. So we'll go ahead and do the other side real quick, and then this little modification will be done. Hopefully this will work out for us, and our rooster back there. Hopefully this will work out for us and get rid of our all that positive camber that we got there. I don't want to go too far just yet with these. We don't want to do any kind of crazy amount of slotting. As you can see, our almost need some kind of pointer here. Let me see. As you can see, our bolt originally was about right here. Obviously we're way back here, so hopefully that'll be enough and we won't have to really mess with it anymore. But again, we won't really know until those parts come in the mail. So we'll go ahead and get the other side hogged out like this, and then we should be good to go. So it'll just be a matter of waiting on those parts coming in the mail. All right, so we got the driver's side done here. As you can see, that's what we're looking for, probably about a ½ an inch. That one may have to go a little bit further, but these two are fine. Like I said, we're just kind of going for little bites right now, and then once we get it figured out as to how far that's going to get us on the bottom side, we can go further if we need to. But we want to start out with, you know, the smallest amount as possible. We don't want to upset too much on the geometry here. We're just trying to fix that huge amount of positive camber. So this little modification is done until we get our lower control arms, and then we can get our camber gauge out and really kind of see where we're at. But for the time being, unfortunately, that's all we can do. So we're kind of stuck waiting on those parts to come in the mail. So as soon as they get in, then we'll be able to move forward and finally, hopefully, get this project tidied up and get the old girl back on the road. So, all right, y'all hang tight. We'll be back with some new parts soon. All right, so it's a couple days later. We got our new parts in the mail. I'll show you here. Brand new control arms, brand new bushings already installed. All we got to do is bolt in our new lower ball joints. We'll get you in here and show you what they're looking like. As you can see, this is the old one here where it split. Yeah, versus the new one. Now these are just some OEM replacements. I think they're SKP is the brand name. Just got them on Rock Auto. It's about 150 bucks for the pair, so it's not bad at all. Also got this nice little shop cart here. The missus got that for me, so makes it a heck of a lot better out here whenever we don't have a full-on shop yet. We can kind of move this stuff around. Never mind the airplanes constantly flying overhead. But anyway, so we got these all ready to go. We'll save these bushings for later on sometime. But in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and bolt our new ball joints into these, and then these will be ready to go back on the car. So that's pretty much all we got left to do is bolt the new ball joints in the bottom, put the driver's side CV axle in, get everything torqued down, bolted down and everything, and we should be about ready to go. So we will go on ahead and just jump into it. Hey, look at that. Now we don't have to like bend over on the ground in order to do stuff. It's awesome, right? We've got our new ball joints here from PRQ. Comes with new hardware, everything you need to install it here. Now you'll notice these have a cone shape on the top and on the bottom, I should say, and on the top. So that's for these conical seats on the top and the bottom of the control arm here. So notice it fits in there nice and snug. You don't have to press these in like you do a lot of lower ball joints. These just bolt right in. I believe the center here is going to be like an 18 mil. Correct, 18 millimeter for it. Look at that. Perfect. Awesome. We'll look up online real quick what the torque spec is and make sure we get these torqued down 100%. Okay, so all you can find online is all kind of different conflicting torque specs for this, so we're just going to tighten the hell out of it and call it a day. That should be plenty tight enough. The only one we're actually going to look at, we did find, I think these are like 35 foot-pounds, so we'll abide by that since they're a little bit more dainty, these small ones here. Alright, so we've got our left-hand side done. Bust out our second ball joint here. This side. You want to make sure that you orient these right, because it will technically go either way. So you don't want to go this way, because obviously that's not going to bolt to the steering knuckle, spindle, whatever you want to call it. So these should be oriented that direction right there. Whenever you put them on the vehicle, this deep portion right here, that's going to actually be on the bottom, right? You can note it by these little knobby deals. Those should be towards the ground. So it's actually going to be on the vehicle like this. The two bolts going into the spindle here, steering knuckle. So, all right. All right. These are now ready to go. Right hand side, you can see the R. Left hand side, just like that. Your the flat one like this is always going to be towards the back of the vehicle. The little one with the tabs on it here is going to be towards the front side. So they're going to be oriented just like this. All right, so once you get under here, I think the easiest way to do this is going to be to bolt the control arm up to the bottom of the spindle first, and then we will try to lift it with the jack so that we can bolt it onto the subframe here actually. And in the meantime, I'm going to unbolt the CV axle so that we're not pulling on it, so that it can kind of slip in and out of the spindle here, steering knuckle, just because I don't want any extra stress on the knuckle at all, on the CV axle rather. Once you get this bolted on there, it doesn't have to be torqued down or anything right this second. We're just trying to get it attached. Now these bolts underneath here are going to be a 15mm. If I can get onto it. Make sure you tighten them up evenly. Alright, so we finally got that one put back together. We actually ended up a little change of plans. We actually attached the lower control arm on the underneath of the steering knuckle, and then its bolts back here. We actually went ahead and attached it on both sides there, and then we had unbolted the two bolts from the bottom of the strut and lined that up last. That seemed to be about the only way we could manage it, and even then you got to use a coil spring compressor to cinch these things down a little bit to get enough room. So now what we're going to be doing is just we're going to lift up on the bottom of the ball joint a little bit, and at the same time we're going to push down with a pry bar on the sway bar so that we can try to line up these sway bar end links, and then we just got to put the tie rod back in and we'll be good to go. Get the 18 in there. So you see we upgraded our impact here, 1/2-inch brushless heart. Got it on a pretty good deal. It's not too bad. 600 foot-pounds of torque, pretty decent. Now you want to give it exactly 47 ugga-duggas. Precise unit of measurement. a little hard to tell on this uneven concrete here. Still looks like we may have some positive camber, so we may have to slot this a little bit further up top here. But that side's all back together with new control arm bushings and everything. So now it's just a matter of fine tuning the camber angle and stuff like that once we get it all settled down. So in the meantime, we're going to call it a night. As you can see, we're almost out of daylight here. So tomorrow we'll get back on it in the afternoon. But before we can do that, we've got a big car show coming tomorrow. I'll probably be posting a video either tomorrow or Sunday, something like that. It's the what is it, Causeway Car Show? Yeah, Causeway Car Show down on Harrison Avenue in Panama City, Florida. So we're going to be heading down to that tomorrow, so that'll probably take up about the first half of the day. And then after that, we'll get on back here and start tackling the driver's side. So, all right, y'all hang tight. We'll see you in a little while. All right, so a couple days later, we had to take a pause from this. Had a big old car show to go to and everything. That video should be out by now by the time this video loads up. So if y'all haven't checked that out, recap showing all the awesome entries into the 4th annual Causeway Car Show down in Panama City, Florida. So anyway, on this side, we're going to do exactly like we did on the other side and just not even fight it like we did that one over there originally. We are going to bolt the control arm into the subframe, and on the bottom of the steering knuckle first, we're going to unbolt the steering knuckle from the strut, and then we'll do that part last, because I seem to have better luck lining all that up than I did with lining up either one of the 3 other pieces. So we're actually doing this, as you can see, without putting the CV axle in first. We'll pop the CV axle in there after we take the steering knuckle loose from the bottom of the strut here. It just kind of gives us a little bit more room to get to these bolts here on the control arm. Alright, so we've got the control arm bolted in on the back side here. So what we're going to do now is take the steering knuckle off of the bottom of the strut. We'll set it off to the side a little bit. Be careful of your ABS lines, or your brake lines rather, and your speed sensor lines and stuff. So we're going to set that off to the side. We'll put a little bit of, we're just using some brake caliper grease here on the little splined section of the bottom of the lower ball joint, I should say, and then we'll get that part bolted in. Yeah, see these little splined sections here? I just want to make sure that we have some sort of coating or something in there just to try to prevent some corrosion, and if we ever have to take this apart, hopefully it'll come apart easier that way. If there's one thing I learned from living up north, you can never have too much stuff like this. Usually don't have to worry about it nowhere near as much down here, but better safe than sorry. It's not like it's going to hurt anything having a little extra, you know, protective coating, lubricant, whatever you want to call it, on this stuff here. So, anymore, ever since being up north, I just put stuff like this on everything. And so far it's seemed to serve me well as far as having stuff come apart later on. Helps if you have the ball joint turned around the right way. Obviously on these, You want it to be the flat side pointing out towards the towards the outside of the vehicle, I should say. Then you want to make sure you tighten this up evenly because, as I said, it does have splines on it, and you can sandwich it in on one side and not the other and make it kind of go in all cockeyed. So be careful of that. I want y'all to, on a side note here, check out this vintage Craftsman 3/8 drive ratchet I found. Picked it up on the eBay there. I don't know about y'all, but I'm a sucker for old school American tools that were forged in the USA. This one's been refurbished by the guy I got it from. Works like a charm. And just something about old American tools whenever they were still made here in the States instead of China. Alright, so we've got that all stabbed in there, lower control arm, and bolted to the bottom of the steering knuckle and to the subframe. So tomorrow when we get home from the old day job, all we got to do is stick the CV axle in there and then fight this juncture right here, lining up the top two bolts on the steering knuckle going onto the bottom of the strut. So then we should be able to drop this on the ground and see where our camber's at with those new slotted bolt holes in the top. It's kind of hard to tell on the other side right now because this side's still being jacked up. Everything's kind of leaning that way, but I think it's going to work for us. If it doesn't, we still have two more camber bolts we can put in there. So yeah, so anyway, we'll pick this up tomorrow afternoon. Alright, so back at it again. We got our driver's side CV axle here. We're gonna go and stab this one in and get it generally in place so that we can try to line up the top two bolts on the steering knuckle here. You want to make sure you orient this the right way. Obviously, the end going towards the outside is going to be the end with the ABS ring on it, just, you know, so nobody has to shove that in the side of the transmission there. Trying to make it slide in there a little easier. This one is a much shorter CV shaft than the passenger side, so you don't really have a whole lot of leverage to be able to kind of shove it in there real good. So, and then with other things in the way here, it makes it even tougher. Alright, so we got that in there. We actually had to give it a little tap with the hammer, very gently like. We ended up removing the strut just to give us a little bit more room, so we're going to stab that strut back up in there now and yeah, start trying to button up this side. Alright, so we got the strut all back up in there. We're going to go ahead and put a little bit of grease on the end of the CV axle on the splines. Ew! Gross. So we'll go ahead and put a little bit of grease on the end of the splines just to you know, make sure that nothing comes loose or anything like, or I mean that everything comes loose in the future. Make sure nothing freezes up or anything. I don't think we'll, like I said on the other side, I don't think we'll really have to worry about it down here, but after living up north, better safe than sorry. I'm trying to remember where I put them last time, because it worked pretty good last time. Meow meow. Stop cat. Say hi. I'm not going to tighten that down 100% just yet. We'll torque that one tomorrow. Wheel speed sensor back in there. Wheel speed sensor is an 8mm, in case anybody needs to know. Alright, so we've got this thing just about dialed in. Our camber angle is straight now. Our steering wheel is still off a little bit. I didn't fix that, but it drives straight down the road anyway. So we got our alignment fixed. She was really toe in the front, so we got that fixed pretty well. You know, as much as you can do at your home driveway anyway, but it drives straight down the road now. So everything seems to be good to go. We are just going to go ahead, and what we're going to be doing is welding the slotted holes that we made on the top hats for the struts. I don't want to, chances are it probably wouldn't go anywhere, but I don't want to take a chance on those moving in the slots. So we've got some steel washers we're going to weld on there to kind of just pretty much relocate the factory holes to where we have them now, to offset our positive camber that we had. But it's running and driving straight. So like I said, just a couple last minute details, and then she'll be good to go. So we did an oil change on it. I think it was a couple videos ago now, but it's been set and we haven't driven it anywhere, so it should be fine on the oil change. And like I said, everything else is pretty much good to go. So we just got to finish off these last minute details, and then she'll be ready to put back on the road. Let's see what we're going to be doing here. As you can see, we've slotted. See, our original hole was way out here. We've slotted these and pushed them inboard from the factory holes, and to offset the positive camber that we had. That worked perfectly fine. The problem is now we have these slots, and I'm worried about them pushing this way if we hit a bump real hard or something. The rooster is just sending it over there. But anyways, so we're gonna take and weld on a steel washer on here to pretty much relocate the hole from over here to over here. So, all right. Alright, so we've got our steel washers here. These are, I think, 5/16 by 1 1/4. Yeah, 5/16 by 1 1/4, so it's 5/16 hole in the middle. 1 1/4 inch is the total space of the washer. So as you can see, it fits over these studs here perfectly in the Volvo. Obviously, the studs are metric size, but the shop cat wanted to say hi. But the 5/16 seems to work on it just fine. So what we're going to be doing is just dropping these over the top of the stud, and then welding them into place along the top of the strut here. We'll get you in there so you can see. So we're just going to drop them over the top of the strut, or over the top of the stud. We'll weld them in place, and then these will be permanent and keep our strut from moving around inside the slot. Obviously we have this one that keeps falling down. We'll make do. Alright, so what we did with our washer was we were noticing when it was flat, when we put it over these two holes, it was hitting on this this little raised up portion here, and it was kind of making it at a funky angle, so it was going to be difficult to weld it on there. So what we did, we just put it in the shop press real quick, and you could do the same thing with a hammer or whatever. And we just bent the edge of it a little bit. I don't know if you can see there, but so that it is no longer flat. So now when we put it up there, it sits nice and flat right up against the side of this little bulge there. Now we can tack weld that in there a lot easier. Alright, so now what we've got going on here is a little unorthodox. Ideally you want some sort of like a fire blanket or something like that. You got to protect the windshield from these sparks with the MIG welder, because they will pit the heck out of the windshield. So use some cardboard, use some old blankets, whatever you got to do. And so we just got some old cardboard boxes here from the move, and we've got everything protected engine wise. And yeah, so now we will bust out the welder and go ahead and try to get this burned in there real quick like. Alright, so we've got that side pretty much done. We'll let that paint dry, go ahead and move over to the next side, and whenever we get done with that side, we'll come over here and finish tightening up all the bolts and everything. Alright, so we got everything reinstalled. Just pumping the brake pad up a little bit. Seems like we took that one off. She's a little soft. Just, you know, anytime you remove your brake calipers and whatnot, they're going to be a little soft when you first start it back up again. But taking it for a test drive now. Look at all the friggin' pollen on this windshield here, man. Springtime in the South. That's a little better. all the work, having to modify stuff to get alignment back in spec, I mean, she feels better than she did before, in all honesty. It's driving normal again. Doesn't feel darty anymore after we fixed the toe issue on it. Just FYI, if you're 2 inches toe in, she's gonna feel a little unstable. But we got that dialed in. Feels good. Engine's running up to temp like normal. It's not making any funky noises. Take your hand off the wheel. Just drive straight. Not too bad for the old backyard alignment. That's about 60. Smooth as a whistle. Well, I think it's safe to say she's all fixed. We'll drive her into town tomorrow and really put it to the test. But I mean, we're up to operating temp. She drives nice and smooth. Everything's good to go, it seems. So some of the stuff we'll kind of only know long term, but for now I think she's good to go. All right, so that's going to do it for this episode of Southern Motorworks. We got the Volvo all back up to snuff. She's running and driving good again. Drives straight down the road. No leaks or anything like that. Finally, it's been a few months she's been laid up, but I think she's finally ready to be put back into service as a daily driver. So there's a few things we got coming to it next. I think we're going to be possibly repainting the wheels and whatnot. She needs a real good wash and polish and stuff right now, but we got a few more details we want to iron out on her. But for right now, I think she's finally ready to be put back into service. So I appreciate y'all hanging out, checking everything out with us, and if you enjoy the content, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see y'all on the next one. All right, y'all hang tight now. We got some new projects in the works here real soon. All right, so we'll catch you on the next one. All right, y'all have a good one out there.